Greetings, kindred. We're going to continue our study of the book of Ezekiel. Last time we finished up with Ezekiel 8, verse 12, so we'll pick that up and let's get started. In this chapter 8, Ezekiel, representing the watchman of today, is being shown by Yahweh Elohim the idolatrous condition of the house of Yahweh, that is, the churches. Here we are first shown the practices of the elders and the people, which are detestable abominations in his sight. But then we are shown the even greater abominations by the priests themselves, who lead the people astray from the true door which leads to the altar of Yahweh. Do you realize if you are a president or a king or queen, or even a ruthless dictator for that matter, you can send men out to hunt down the enemy and thereby cause them to lose their flesh lives. But if you are a priest or minister of Yahweh, you can send men out to hunt Ishtar eggs and cause them to lose their eternal souls. So you decide which is the more serious command. Those who teach in the realm of religion deal not with the flesh and blood, but are with the very souls of those who listen to them. It is the most serious and consequential position on earth, again, more so than that of a king or of a president, and so Yeshua Christ warned every Christian, teacher, and layman alike, let no man deceive you. The Apostle Paul also warned, let no man deceive you by any means. And so it is that any true teacher of Yahweh's word will tell you to check out everything for yourself so that you are not misled. Think about those rascally Bereans in Acts 17, verse 11, quote, these were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind and searched the scriptures daily, whether those things were so, close quote. These dudes checked out the Apostle Paul's teaching. Imagine the audacity. Well then, if the Apostle Paul can be checked out in the scriptures, how about the bishops or the evangelists, especially those prancing preachers on TV, or even the Pope himself? Are they better than Paul? Are they above the same scrutiny? If we as a people would just hold our teachers, our politicians, and our ministers accountable for what they teach and do, we wouldn't be in this liberal mess we are in now in this country. Do you think our Father is proud of how we Christians have let the liberals, led by the Kenites, destroy our institutions, take prayer out of school, call it a right to kill the unborn, and bring perversion disguised as entertainment into the very living rooms of our homes? Where do we start? Since judgment begins at the house of Yahweh, let's look at the house of Yahweh and see what's going on. Let's see if the word of Yahweh is being taught there. Ezekiel 8, verse 12. Then said he unto me, Son of man, hast thou seen what the ancients of the house of Israel do in the dark, every man in the chambers of his imagery? For they say, the Lord seeth us not, the Lord hath forsaken the earth. The question is, have you seen what the elders of the house of Israel, who should know better, do in the dark, each man with his own idolatrous thing? If you're thinking about olden times and ancient history, which people tend to do when reading the Old Testament, then you must update the English to today's terminology, because remember, this chapter pertains to these last days. So, have you seen the idolatrous practices of the churches today? Have you read and understood the 7 churches of Revelation, chapters 2 and 3, and how that 5 out of the 7 are in big trouble because of what they teach? And Yeshua Christ says somewhat against them. They practice and teach the traditions of men, many of which came directly from the heathen. We are not condemning them, for most do it in blindness and ignorance, as many of us have in the past, but we are instructed by our Father to eat the entire book and teach others to do the same. As they grow in the Word and become mature Christians, ancients, i.e., elders in wisdom, not age, they will come out of Babylon, which is the religious idolatry and confusion disguised as Christianity to those who cannot see it. Verse 13. He said also unto me, Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations that they do. Okay, so we have seen the elders burning incense to their idols and zippity-doo-dah daying around them. What could be worse? How about women partaking in sexual orgies as part of their religious ceremony? The summer solstice celebration of the pagan city Tammuz, the Phoenician god Adonais, who is said to die and come back to life each year, begins with weeping and lamenting for his death, but it culminates in a religious sexual experience in which they yield their persons to prostitution. Tammuz, the fabled death and restoration of Adonais, supposed to symbolize the departure and return of the sun, were celebrated at the summer solstice with lamentations first, then rejoicings and obscene revels. That's Smith's Bible Dictionary. Verse 14. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of Yahweh's house, which was toward the north, and behold, there sat a woman weeping for Tammuz. What they should have been weeping for is the sins of the nation instead of weeping for Tammuz. By the way, Tammuz was a popular guy. After all, sex sells. Ask anyone on Madison Avenue or in Hollywood. And also, he got the 4th month of the Semitic year named after him, the month of Tammuz. Pagan gods and goddesses must really like to have their names on the calendars. Just look at the days of our week, for example. We have the day of the Norse god of war, Tyr, i.e., Thus for Tuesday. In French, it is Mardi, meaning from Mars. Then there is his son Woden, which is why Wednesday is spelled unphonetically. If they would have just told me it was named after some pagan god by the name Woden, maybe I wouldn't have misspelled it so many times in kindergarten. We also have another god, Thor, the god of thunder, who gets his own day each week called Thor's Day. War, thunder, no wonder the work week is such a battle. Oh, but the people's favorite is Phrygia, or Phrygia, the goddess of love, i.e. the sex goddess. That must be why Friday nights are always so special. Then, of course, we have the day of Saturn, the sun, and the moon. What really gets me, though, are the months of the year, especially the last 4. You see, sept means 7, oct as an octopus or octagon means 8, nov, or for November, means 9, and dec, as in December, is decimal, meaning 10. So September, October, November, and December mean the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th months. But they are the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th months. Just thought you might like to know. Is the calendar all messed up or what? So much for the digression. We were discussing sex, right? Our Father constantly and consistently likens adultery, fornication, and whoredom to the religious practices of his people. It is written throughout the Bible, from the beginning perversions in Genesis to the great whore of Revelation. Everything has been demonstrated physically in the flesh that is happening spiritually today. In fact, if one really wants to understand salvation, they should read the book titled Salvation of Yah, i.e. the book of Hosea. What? Read about salvation in the Old Testament. You got it. Our Father told Hosea to go marry a whore. He wanted him to know what the Yahweh's marriage to his wife Israel felt like. He married her and she became a whore. And this very day his woman, his church, his bride-to-be, continues in her idolatry. In fact, when Yeshua returns, he will find many of them with child spiritually. Woe unto them! They've been whoring around again. As he said on the way to Golgotha, the day will come when it will be called a blessing to be barren. In other words, we are to remain virgins and wait for the bridegroom. Too descriptive for a nice church-going Christian? Then just stick to Easter bunnies and other traditions of men that don't bother studying his word. Pretend you are going to fly away into the clouds in some swooping rapture when the king of Babylon comes. Or you can put on the gospel armor and be a Christian soldier. The choice is yours. We've already learned that each one of us will be recompensed according to our own decisions. Verse 15. Then he said unto me, Hast thou seen this, O Son of Man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these. So the question is again, do you have eyes to see the abominations in the churches that people do? If you do, then get ready to see even greater abominations than that last one. The reason this next verse contains greater abominations than even the heathen sexual revels of the people is because the leaders of the 24 courses of the Levitical priesthood, that's 1 Chronicles 24, verses 1 through 19, along with the high priest himself, 25 priests and all, not only participate in the traditions of men, the example given being the heathen ritual of sun worship, but they do it between the porch and the altar, with their backs toward the temple, making obeisance to the rising sun. Verse 16. And he brought me into the inner court of Yahweh's house, and behold, at the door of the temple of Yahweh, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of Yahweh, and their faces toward the east, and they worshiped the sun toward the east. As we noted earlier, it is one thing for the people to follow the traditions of men, but it is a greater abomination for the minister or priest of Yahweh, who should uphold the oracles of Yahweh and teach them to the people, to be participants in such heathen practices. It is written that judgment will begin with them, the trustees of the house of the Yahweh. And as we read in chapter 3, verses 18, the people's blood will be upon them. Want to teach Yahweh's word? You better make sure you first eat the whole book and digest it. Ezekiel 8, verse 17. Then he said unto me, Hast thou seen this, O Son of Man? It is a light thing to the house of Judah that they commit the abominations which they commit here. For they have filled the land with violence and have returned to provoke me to anger. And lo, they put the branch to their nose. The word violence means unrighteousness, and the word branch, well, I hate to even go there. If you have a companion Bible, it is fully explained in Appendix 42. The Hebrew word is Asherah. And I think that I'm going to stop here a minute and just say that Asherah is a phallic symbol. Is it a light thing then? Is it really no big deal that we bring in heathen, idolatrous fertility symbols into the churches, into the houses of Yahweh for Ishtar, and stand facing the east toward the sun for Easter sunrise worship services? Have you ever asked yourself where all this came from? Yeshua did not even rise with the sun. When Mary Magdalene came to the sepulchre early in the morning, it was still dark, and he was gone already. Eat this verse and digest it. This is John 20, verse 1. The first day of the week cometh Mary Magdalene early, when it was yet dark, unto the sepulchre, and seeth the stone taken away from the sepulchre. Many would say, "Oh, we are not celebrating Ishtar and giving our children symbols of fertility. We are celebrating Resurrection Sunday and using symbols of new life like eggs and lilies and a brand new dress." You can call a skunk anything you like, but if it looks like a skunk and smells like a skunk, though you call it a rose, it is still a skunk. I'm not too poetic, so here is, quote, "Thus saith the Yahweh," Proverbs 14:12. "There is a way which seemeth right unto man, but the end thereof are the ways of death." The exact same thing is repeated 2 chapters later for emphasis. Proverbs 16, verse 25. "There is a way that seemeth right unto man, but the end thereof are the ways of death." Our Father doesn't like it no matter how right it seems unto us. He has had everything He wants us to do written and explained in His Word, line by line, chapter by chapter, and verse by verse, along with everything that is going to happen prophetically in His plan. Yeshua said in Mark 13:23, quote, "But take ye heed, behold, I have foretold you all things." It just makes Him furious that His children disobey and ignore His letter of love. And instructions to them, and it will bring about the chastisement we read of in chapter 7. So it is written, so shall it be done. Ezekiel 8, verse 18. "Therefore will I also deal in fury. Mine eye shall not spare, neither will I have pity. Though they cry in mine ears with a loud voice, yet I will not hear them." Does He hear your prayers? Okay, that ends today's session. I'll pick it up next time with the next chapter and verse. Meanwhile, have a blessed day, and Yahweh bless you and keep you. Amen.